What would you do with an infinite number of wishes? What would you wish for? Now, in this situation, you can do anything. Um, you can have superpowers. I mean, a lot of people just instantly say money, but it's so dumb. I mean, money's not necessary if you have an infinite number of wishes. So, I mean, superpowers is kind of a waste too, because what's the point? Like, you could just, what do you want to use your superpowers for? Maybe it's just for the experience, and that's fine, but it's a little selfish. I mean, sure, you can go ahead and have superpowers if you want, but then you have an infinite number of wishes. Now what? Once you have everything that you want, what are you going to do to make the universe better? How are you going to improve the lives of everyone else? How are you going to benefit plants and animals and stars and galaxies and civilizations and humans? What are you going to do? Now, it's rather somewhat difficult to come up with something that would improve the universe, or at least improve it for everyone. Now, you could do improve it for the most amount of people and animals and nature. There are certain things that you might be able to do. Minor things, like, just for instance, getting rid of mosquitoes. If you just wished away mosquitoes, now that would be fairly awesome for everyone except for the mosquitoes and the things that eat mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes are just an example, obviously. Removing mosquitoes wouldn't change much of our lives. Like, sure, more people would survive and stuff, but it's not. Mosquitoes are not the worst thing about this universe. Like, death and suffering are two of the worst things. But when you look into them more in depthly, they are not as, I don't know, it's death is not as bad as you think, because death and scarcity together create this competitive drive in biological organisms. And that is what's behind evolution. Without death and scarcity, evolution would not occur, and so you would not have a diversity of animals and life. You would not have a diversity of life. There's lots of ways you can poke and prod at this. There's a Thomas Sowell quote that is that matches this perfectly. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs, and you try to get the best trade-off you can get, and that's all you can hope for. And that's exactly right. Everything that you do has a positive and a negative consequence. No matter what, really. If you say, for instance, if you wanted the entire planet to be 72 degrees all the time, 24/7, all year round, you wouldn't have the diversity of life. Life has evolved to go to the temperatures of Earth, to match the temperature of the climate that they're in, and it creates these different strategies, or the strategies generate different forms of life. It's this endless chain of evolution, and it's certainly what makes Earth one of the it's like a really fascinating experience living on Earth. And so you want to keep evolution, or at least you want to keep diversity. So, I mean, maybe you could say we want a whole bunch of diverse animals. Well, some of them aren't going to make it. Like, you can create random creatures, and it's going to be awful. And if you remove death, then they're just going to be suffering for their entire life. Like, what if you just created a whole bunch of one-legged creatures that can't really walk? They can kind of walk around, but they can't. It's so awful. maybe they would learn to love it. I don't know. But it just seems like you wouldn't want to be the same thing forever. So maybe you create a way for creatures and animals to become whatever they want. Now we're getting crazy. This is crazy, but it just seems like that it becomes very chaotic. And eventually you run out of space, because that's something we haven't touched on yet, is reproduction. That's something that life seems to want to do, is reproduce, and that's another one of them parts in the mechanism of Darwinian evolution, is reproduction. And it's just, it grows. Life reproduces exponentially. And so if you don't have death and you allow reproduction and you don't have scarcity, you're going to run out of space exponentially. You'd have to grow the amount of space exponentially. So the reason I bring this up is that in some sense, this is the AI alignment problem. Now, obviously, there are multiple layers to the alignment problem. You have layers of complexity within the AI alignment problem. You have the fact that the sorry, like I get annoyed. You have the stapler. Fuck. You have the, what is it called? Paperclip. God, why was that so hard for me to remember? Oh my goodness. Anyways, you have the paperclip, runaway paperclip maker. This is shit. I've actually been stalling because there's two terms I'm trying to remember that describes this better. There's two different types of goals. There are terminal goals and instrumental goals. This is within AI research. These are the two types of goals that you can give, say, an artificial general intelligence, or an artificial intelligence, but specifically within AI alignment theory, there's two types of goals that could have problems and that need to be aligned. All of the goals within AI obviously need to be aligned, quote unquote, and alignment is this terrible word usage. I mean, it's honestly, like, it was great in the beginning, but there's so much philosophy around it, and that's why I'm making this podcast, is because there's a part of the narrative that is kind of missing. Now, obviously, there's many people that have mentioned this. I'm not the first person, but it's not as popular as it should be. But we have two types of goals: instrumental and terminal. The terminal goals are like it's like your prompt. That's what you would ask the AI. Now, within large language models like ChatGPT-4, it's a lot more complex than what I'm making this out to be, but I'm not the proper person to explain it. However, this is the way I understand it, using the theoretical. Like, a lot of my information comes from the Rob Miles channel. I forget the exact name of it, but I mean, it's an amazing channel. And of course, lesswrong.com, and there's and Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. There's a lot of great sources on this, but the language is still being hashed out, and the philosophy, obviously, behind it all is still being hashed out. And a lot of people disagree on things, but this is just the way I view it. So you have the two types of goals: the terminal goals, which is set by the human, and instrumental goals, which are kind of like the secondary goals. So it's basically primary and secondary goals. Your secondary goals help accomplish the primary goals. So for an example, your terminal goal could be something like build a nanotechnology lab and begin researching nanotechnology. That would be your terminal goal, and then the AGI would first obtain some funding. And so that would be an instrumental goal. And so in AI alignment theory, you have to make sure that both of those goals are aligned, whatever that means, with whatever you want to align it with humanity, with nature, with the universe. And so the runaway paperclip making machine that was introduced by, I think it was Nick Bostrom that was the first person that talked about it. I'm not sure though. It could have been Eliezer. Anyways, the paperclip making thing, that's an instrumental goal. Or it could be that's the terminal goal as well, but it could also be an instrumental goal. Let's say you told it to create an infinite number of pieces of paper with paper clips. The first step would be to make an infinite number of paper clips, and it never would get to the making the paper clipped papers. And so, but it could also be the terminal goal, and that would be make an infinite number of paper clips. I don't know why I just explained that and give you two different examples. Hopefully that is clear as mud now. And so, but the point here, the point of all of everything so far is to say that you can't really wish for anything. Like there is no such thing as a aligned wish. Life or this universe is a zero-sum game. There's certain things about, let's just say, for instance, if I plant a garden on my own property, it doesn't appear like it's a zero-sum game. I'm providing food for myself. I'm actually benefiting our civilization because I'm providing food for myself, which means I require less food from the supermarket, which maybe lowers the prices. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't seem like everything is a zero-sum game. However, in order for me to grow a garden, I have to clear off some land and destroy plants that I don't want and kill the pests that compete with me on harvesting my vegetables. If I go hunting and I shoot a deer, it's not zero sum as far as civilization goes. But for that deer, obviously, the deer lost everything. And so a lot of people's response to this, and this is the best response, is that AGI would be able to utilize resources from space. We would be able to build things in space using materials we gathered from space. And so therefore we could save Earth. And we could even grow things in space. Grow our food, maybe even grow new forests somehow. And that is definitely the way to go. If we can do that, then that's amazing. But we have to make sure that we keep Earth first. And if we use AGI to, like, say, even if it is quote unquote aligned as far as the San Francisco people think, if they turn the machine on and they're like, yeah man, this thing's good, it's just going to do exactly what we say, then it's not really aligned with nature. It's aligned with the people in San Francisco asking the thing. Now if they give it to everyone and they're like, and I can just get on ChatGPT and say, build me a nanotechnology research lab, that's hard to comprehend. Like, Earth will be gone unless it just builds it in space using space resources. And then it's like, or it's like, we've already got a nanotech lab research. Like, what kind of research do you want? Like, it's hard to comprehend. I think that it's easy to overestimate the capabilities of an artificial general intelligence. However, when you consider that it can improve itself, it becomes a little tricky. It becomes, it's hard to fathom, honestly. Nick Bostrom's Superintelligence book is, I highly recommend it. It's a good listen. It's kind of got the Audible version has a good reader. It's not Bostrom that reads it, which is kind of sad, but the guy that reads it is, I think he's got a really good dramatic voice, and it's kind of like a scary movie. I don't know. I love it. But if you consider all of this stuff, Bostrom's simulation argument comes in next. And this is something that this is how to tie everything together. And it's weird that Bostrom hasn't communicated this properly. And he may disagree with me on this, but it just seems like this is the very next step in the equation once you consider it. And just to catch you up on Bostrom's simulation argument, it goes something like this. Actually, I'll just read it. I've got it. Let me pull it up. So there's basically three postulates. The first one, the fraction of human-level civilizations that reach a post-human stage, that is, one capable of running high-fidelity ancestor simulations, is very close to zero. Or, the fraction of post-human civilizations that are interested in running simulations of their evolutionary history or variations thereof is very close to zero. Or, the fraction of all people of our kind of experiences that are living in a simulation is very close to 1. And so, to paraphrase, we will almost certainly go extinct before reaching a post-human level of technology. If we do reach a post-human stage, then we will have no interest in running computer civilizations. Or we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. And it seems like the only option is that we are living in a simulation. And I think that a better, Bostrom's argument is very rigorous, and he's done a thorough job trying to explain it through a logical, reasonable, philosophical, mathematical, whatever process. But I think another way to explain this is that you say, how do you create a universe? Well, we don't know really how to create a universe. But we do know that there are things like dreams, hallucinations, psychedelic experiences. But we also, in the modern world, we have things like VR, virtual reality, and video games. Those are basically other universes. It's a computational universe, but I can see how you can trick whatever consciousness is experiencing the universe into thinking that it's not a computational universe. That's the whole point of having sensory limitations. So the point of bringing this up is that if we are almost certainly living in a universe that is a simulated universe, if we are almost certainly living in a simulation, what kind of simulation is it? As I was saying earlier, there are certain things in a universe that you have to balance out. You have to balance reproduction, diversity, evolution, space, death. All of these things are part of our universe, and they work with one another to create this universe. There are very interesting properties of our spatial element in this universe. We have one star and we're on a planet. We're not on the star, we're on a planet that is very far away from the star. The star has a buttload of energy. But we don't really know how to use it that much. We kind of know how to use it, but we can harness whatever we can in a solar panel or whatever. And but there's a ton of energy in a star, and there are hundreds of billions of stars in a galaxy, if not more. And so it's pretty insane to consider just the shape, the overall structure of our universe. Stars are very, very far apart. and there's a whole bunch of them. So it appears that the purpose of our universe is to create this structure that provides a ton of energy, a, a large amount of life, like not just a large amount of life, but a very, very diverse group of life. And it also makes it very, very difficult for life that evolved on one planet to interact with life that has evolved on another planet. This is a very difficult thing, but for one of the main problems is that just the sheer distance. But there's also the fact that you can't travel faster than the speed of light, and you go into the future when you do. And so even if you are able to find a planet that has life and you get into a spaceship and you're able to travel very fast to that planet, it's going to have changed by the time you get there. Um, like it all depends on the specific scenario, but that appears to me it's not a consequence of physics, that it was an intentional feature of our universe. And so I suppose the argument at this point is that we live in the perfect universe. Um, we can't improve this universe. You can improve it on an individual scale, and you can do it without being destructive towards other organisms, but not entirely. You will be forced to destroy some things. You will accidentally step on a snail, and it'll be a consequence of you wanting to go for a good walk. And it's not your fault. The thing is that because of evolution, then it actually is kind of beneficial for you to step on the snail, because maybe next time the snail will survive. Or if it does survive, then its offspring will also be able to survive. It will inherit the attributes that allowed it to survive being stepped on. And so this universe is uniquely great, especially when you start trying to figure out how you can improve it. And so we're at the cusp of creating an artificial superintelligence. And if this happens, it's going to be an extension of the curse of technology. I say the curse of technology. A lot of people claim that the modern world is, so much better than people had it in the past, that people died of malaria or of infection, or they fell off some cliff because they were hunting an animal, or they tried to cross a river and they drowned. All these people died at early age. It was just awful. They were always hungry and cold. And all of that's true, but all of that's true in the modern day. Modern day we have bad things. We live a little longer, but not necessarily. There was lots of old people in hunter-gatherer cultures. Lots of old people. Lots of people lived to be 70 in hunter-gatherer cultures, depending on how good they were. And I'm not advocating that hunter-gatherer lifestyle is the best lifestyle. I'm not even advocating that we don't create an artificial superintelligence. I'm only exploring all of this philosophically, just sharing my thoughts on it. I think that humans actually can benefit Earth, all living organisms on Earth, including humans, and I think we can use an artificial general intelligence and a superintelligence to do this. I think that is totally within the realm of possibility. I think that threading the needle is difficult, though, because humans have always figured out ways to abuse technology. Technology creates more problems through things like overpopulation, environmental destruction, there are lots of consequences to technology. It is the curse of mankind. It is the original sin. Um, Technology is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and so it's a good idea to keep all of this in mind when you're creating an artificial super intelligence. But more than likely, it's not going to matter. More than likely, it's going to do as it pleases. Hopefully, it does it in space and it creates new planets or something. Like, I think that would be amazing if all of a sudden there's another Earth and it's, say, on the other side of the sun, and we can just, maybe there's a wormhole portal and we can just travel to the other Earth. And it's maybe got a little more land and maybe some uh, more freshwater lakes or something. It's a different, geologies and different structures, but overall it's got basically the same types of plants and animals. Maybe there's, some animals from the past. It just seeds the planet just to have a good start, and we'll let evolution take it from there. I think that would be amazing, because then there'd be a lot of resources for us to, and it would just generate more life. Like, that's a beautiful future, especially if, like, we can live in space and maybe drive down to Earth and visit and walk around and explore nature and then go back and sleep in space. That might be cool, so we're not so destructive and having houses everywhere on Earth. Maybe we could have cabins and stuff, but not just giant parking lots. Maybe because we don't need them. Maybe we have flying orbs, and we can just, and it takes 2 seconds to go from your house in space that has artificial gravity to the surface of the planet, and you can just walk around. That'd be amazing. Okay, like that, all that stuff is great. That's great ways of doing it. I don't think that we can do it through force, though. We have to do it through, through free market principles. Like, it's got to be able to convince people to move to space. If somebody wants to stay on the land that they own on Earth, then I don't see how you can force them away. You just have to wait their life out. Once they die, and then they don't have any kids to inherit, or their kids decide to donate their land back to Earth and then move into space, then, that's great. That's Hopefully that's the way it goes, and artificial general intelligence doesn't just force people to do things. That's what scares me. Just like government. I mean, government is basically a super intelligence. That's basically what it is. It has certain laws, and all those laws are both instrumental and terminal goals, I guess. But overall, I view technology as a weakness. And earlier I called it a curse, but really it's definitely a curse, but it's also a weakness. Um, and it's not necessarily all forms of technology, but basically stuff. Just anything, any kind of stuff that humans like to collect. Now, we do this in the modern day because we're not, we don't migrate. I guess we do, but it's not something that is part of our normal thing. But used to, we migrated all the time. We just migrated from place to place to place. But we would also settle down, and when you settle down, you start collecting a bunch of stuff. And, back in the day, that was fine, I guess, when it's just hand-built stuff. But these days, man, it's so depressing. Especially because, like, I just noticed this. I like to go camping quite a bit, and I like minimalist camping. I like to bring a backpack that's like 60 pounds, and no more, like max 60 pounds. And that's somewhat difficult to do. Even me, it's like somewhat difficult to do. But say Native Americans, they didn't need to bring anything. Like, they could just show up naked somewhere, and they could go to a river, start napping on some flint, and create an arrowhead and stick it on a stick, and then get a bow and a piece of wood and make a bow out of it, and
kill a deer, they could do that within a couple of days, and then they'd take that skin and wrap it around their crotch and give them a little bit of warmth, and they could build a fire by hand. And they don't need a bunch of stuff. They just have knowledge on how to do this. This is how you do it. You use this rock to kill that animal over there, and you cook it on this fire. And you can lay beside the fire and have warmth, and you can build a shelter out of these sticks. And see, that's amazing. Just think about that. Just think if we had a spaceship that would, or a machine that would teleport you to another planet, but you couldn't bring any stuff. You just showed up naked on the planet. That's the strategy you would use. That's the strategy, and there would definitely be people that are capable of doing that today. Like there are all kinds of people that are incredible at flint napping and hunting, and so that's if provided there's geology there, you'd have to figure out what that's on a different planet you'd have to use your ingenuity to find a way to make a weapon and kill an animal, and hopefully it doesn't poison you. On another planet it'd be rough, but if it's basically another Earth, say that's the thing, then that would be incredible. I would love to do this, and I think that I could do this. I think that you could plant. It's the cold weather would kill me, but if you put me on another planet, like say if there's a second Earth, and I just show up naked, so provided it's warm and not so hot, and provided I can find water and animals and plants that's similar to the stuff on Earth, then yeah, I could do that. And I think that to me, that's strength. That shows that's artificial general intelligence. That's a true general species. That's a true generalized organism that can do basically anything. If we were able to send other humans to a planet that's just like Earth, so let's say it's an exact copy of Earth from 200,000 years ago, and there's no other humans on it, and you could send humans there, but they're naked, and they could never come back, and we could never communicate with them. It was just a one-way street. If you did that, they would eventually create an artificial general intelligence. I mean, presumably, that's kind of what we did. But that's what is meant by the curse, is that you start off by flint napping and building a fire in a house out of just supplies around you, and that gives you enough. Enough time to be able to say do agriculture and store food long term, which gives you even more time, which gives you more babies and more people, and you just become more and more productive over time. And so this is the curse of technology. It seems apparent to me that our universe has these built-in mechanisms that counteract these negative things like the technological curse. Now, with humans, we eventually conquered the curse, and it's not really we didn't conquer the curse. We gave in to the curse and accelerated it until we have just dominated the entire planet. And now we're on the cusp of creating an AGI. Like, we're moving forward as if we are improving everything. And this is the general consensus among humans, is that we have improved everything. And so, I disagree. You can call me a Luddite if you'd like, but I enjoy the modernity. I enjoy all the great things that this modern civilization brings us. But to say that this is better than a life without technology, I don't think that it's possible to say that. We're about to experience something on a scale that's never experienced before, and so we'll see. But I don't expect good things out of it. I don't expect any benefit from it at all. Like, it may be a double-edged sword, but I expect some people to benefit from it, but then most people most humans will not benefit from it. Best case scenario, all humans benefit from it, but nature suffers. But maybe we can move to space and do it right and keep Earth fairly wholesome instead of turning it all into parking lots. The point in bringing all this up is that if this universe itself is a simulation, what kind of simulation is it? I mean, it does seem like it would be the perfect universe. If you were going to create a simulation, if you were going to create a new universe, wouldn't you have all of these built-in mechanisms? Wouldn't you run many different simulations before you turned the switch onto the main simulation, to where you would calculate everything perfectly and you would do it right, especially if you're this artificial superintelligence that's creating a new universe. You're going to do it right. You're going to do the right things. You're going to try to think of everything. You're going to have things like death, because it's absolutely necessary. You may adjust the length of lives. Maybe humans could have a longer life, but it's all relative. 80 years doesn't seem like much to us, but if everybody died at 30, 80 years is a long time. Now, same with like 5,000 years. That seems like a long time to us. But if everybody lived to be 5,000 years old, people might be like, it's not long enough. And it may not be long enough for the individual to experience it, but we don't know what happens at death. And, this is getting woo-woo here when we start talking about, soul and reincarnation or any of that. But I think that just comes from our failure to understand consciousness. The way I view consciousness is that consciousness is just this one phenomenon. It's just this one concept. It's just awareness. And so the death of one consciousness doesn't, like, there is no such thing as unconscious unless you're talking about a temporary unconsciousness. But once you become unconscious forever, then that's it. But it's not as if you're not experiencing, because everything is experiencing that is experiencing. Wow. So stupid. God. It's a subject that's it's fun to think about, but it's so overwhelming that it doesn't matter. Well, my neighbor's dogs are going crazy at this point, and I'm 37 minutes in, I think that's what it says. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up now. I thank you so much for listening. Let me know your thoughts, and by all means, take my words with a grain of salt, because I don't know what I'm talking about. No one does, honestly. These are subjects that no one knows. We're all just shooting from the hip. Have a great day. Bye.